People always said, and people, my friends, that have been through divorce, right? People that I've spoken to about divorce say it gets better. One day you'll be on the other side, and when you go through it, you're like, really?
Yeah.
My story is different from your story. How is that going to happen?
Sure. It's a reaction. This glamorized Instagram couple goals.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, look at us. And I'm like, well, it's not reality.
Not even Instagram, it's church.
She.
It happens at church.
She went there.
Come on now.
That's it. Like a grudge where you're not
Sheesh.
talking about stuff is, and I'm not saying that you're making stuff up, please. But you run the risk of having a narrative playing in your head that's actually not what happened.
1, 2, 3, 4.
What's good, beautiful people? Welcome to 2.5 Husbands, where we celebrate becoming better husbands.
It's 2.5, even though there are 3 husbands, and that's because at some point, one of us, if not all of us, was not fully the husband that we were supposed to be.
And that's why we actually come here on a weekly basis to discuss some of the issues that we face, some of the issues we are seeing around us, and we hope that the journey that we started with you and for you is going to benefit you,
and yours.
Sup.
What
What up, Doug?
Hello.
Hey, Dr. James.
Hey,
How are you?
Mungisi.
That name is on the internet now.
Oh, I knew it. I should have known that Dr. James is going to go there. Sorry.
Listen,
I'll
was
call you by
surgical.
your name
This
then.
is my
She
son
was
who you
surgical.
did tell the name to.
Ish. Sorry.
Right?
Surgical with her words.
Yeah,
Love
we just
it.
go, Mom, you mean so-and-so? Yeah.
I'll
Did
call-
you know that his name is this?
Ah, Lord.
Years ago, it stuck.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, we're here now. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
This is great.
Thank you.
For those who don't know, Dr. James has influenced our... So, we need
Theola.
to explain this doctor thing. But
Yeah,
anyway.
please, because I'm not a doctor.
Well, we're still arguing. Not a doctor.
Haven't reached a conclusion on that yet.
Whether we agree with the medical society or not, that's where the issue is.
Exactly.
But she's been a great influence in us continuing to put out these episodes because we didn't know that she was watching
Yep.
until she said she was watching, and her words really encouraged us to continue doing what we're doing. So we want to give you your flowers on this
thank
very
you.
platform to say thank you for your encouragement, so it's such an honor that you are here with us as well. We've never been this formal with anybody.
Are you serious,
Yep.
Black?
So you watch this, you know, sir.
Yeah, I know. Don't be formal with me now. You've never been formal with me before.
We are giving honor and accolade to those who
Hey,
On this humble servant.
come
no.
on, give you your flowers now. But I wanted to start off with your post that you put out.
I'm curious about this post too,
check.
Black.
You put it out on the 29th of July.
Yo.
a day
A
before my
year
birthday. No, do I want
after
the word?
something major.
Yes, an exact year.
Yep.
Let me read it.
Okay.
I won't read the whole thing, but there's things that I think we're gonna pick up throughout the conversation. So I might pick up where I end off somewhere else in the chat. But it starts here. A year ago today, my I do for the rest of my life became I do until today. 29th of July, 2022, for 16 years and 29 days only. The past year has been tumultuous. That's the kind of English we use on this podcast. Well done.
You have
To
to check
say-
the post to see the spelling.
Come on, to say
I
the
did check
least. That's
I
me.
edited it.
I have Google open on the side.
And then I checked it again after I posted.
Yeah. Then I play the little voice notes on
to
Google
hear
thing
the
to hear.
pronunciation.
Let me.
Yeah.
Am I actually
Tumultuous.
reading
Yeah.
the word that I
And
wanted
it doesn't
to say?
have the right meaning. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Right? So the past year has been tumultuous, to say the least, with feelings of abandonment at the forefront. Abandonment after all the unconditional love I gave. But you realize in life that there is only so far you can go. I want to read the rest, but I think let's leave it there. I'll
Yeah.
pick it up.
Pause.
I'll pick it up. So I do for the rest of my life only lasted 16 years and 29 days.
Yep.
That's the part that the first time my wife told me about your post, because I think you dropped it at a time when, I don't know if I was back on social media. No, I wasn't.
No,
I
you
wasn't.
didn't.
I got back this year
Yeah.
on social media, so I wasn't. So when she read it, I was like, oh, smack. And that 16 years and 29 days is just like, it's so poetic. There's a lot of imagery in it. I know it's your story, but there's just like so much in it. And especially considering that we've heard this a couple of times. Nobody gets married to divorce.
Yep.
You want your I do to be forever. And when you are divorced, you know, because I mean, a lot of people that engage with our podcast tend to be single people who watch this so that they can be like, how are we going to be when we do get there? But what I thought was helpful about your story, and obviously you watching the podcast as well, is that the people who watch never think about your story. So it always ends here. So I'm single, I'm watching this so that it ends here,
Yeah.
but there's a possibility that it could end where you are.
Yeah.
Right. So why did you put it out?
Whew. So I look at something like that and I can't believe I did it. But at the same time, I was strong enough to do it. And I think that's why I did it. Because
Okay.
I think it was a year of coming to that point where you've accepted it and you've realized, okay, so now that's it. It's a year done. I can move on and I can now speak about it. Not that I haven't spoken about it before. And I think everyone knows my story. You know, people that know me, I'm open. I'm just that kind of person. I don't have anything to hide about me. So I just speak. And I speak because I can encourage people. And I think that's what it was. It was, the previous post was about lemons. And it was like suddenly something just popped into my head. I mean, I was cutting lemons and that was it. And I'm like, and I wrote and I posted after a very long time, you know, something that profound.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I'm like, that was healing to me to be able to write that. And on that day, I'm like, I can't just sit quiet about this and keep it inside of me. I feel like I needed it to be out there for me to heal. Because you go through, when you go through stuff in life, some people will have various outlets. One of them was because you can't do much, so you write.
Yeah.
So you write poems and you write things. And
Have you always written poems?
No, it's only in the last couple of years that I started writing.
Like,
I
I was
always
listening to that
liked.
stanza and I was like, this is so well written. Like the imagery
Yeah.
to the point that you're I'm like,
You must read the lemons post.
no, listen. After this,
We wanted
reading the
Let
book.
me not say we take credit, like, but my wife wanted to like shoot something for that.
Yeah, she told me.
Yeah.
That was an honor. I'm like, me? Really? Me? Fiola?
read it?
Fiola? You know, like, seriously? But it was that, the previous post was about, you know, cutting lemons, and I got poked with thorns, you know? Lemon trees have lemons are lovely. For me, they're lovely. They're not bitter or sour or anything, but you get poked by that thorn because I don't taste, and that's what the post was about, I don't taste the bitterness in lemons, you know? But you get poked with these thorns, right?
Sure.
And you're like, whew, that is a rude awakening. It really was a rude awakening for me. And then I wrote that post that night. You know, I washed the lemons and it looked so beautiful. And I'm like, something so beautiful and people find it sour? How?
Yeah.
You know, but the to get those lemons was difficult. And it just reminds you of a patch in your life that you went through.
sure.
A huge portion of your life that you went through.
Yeah.
And then when I wrote the next post, it was like when I went through that day and I'm like, I have to document this. I have to document it because when I look at how many little diaries or books that I've had written things down over the years, you know, and you forget. And I wanted it on social media, not for the world to see, but for me to remind myself of where I was and where I'd come from, you know, and what you aspire to and what you dreamt of And it didn't happen. But God brought me to a point where I am ready to talk about it. And I'm ready to be used in that way. You know, for him to say, okay, Theola, so life gave you lemons. It's so easy to say, let's make lemonade.
It is
Right?
easy to say.
But not everybody makes good lemonade.
Yeah. Wow. Come on, now. Come on. Are you writing a book?
This is why you're a doctor.
I don't know where this comes from.
This is why you're a doctor.
It's literally,
Come on, now.
maybe it's
on,
all
man.
by fluke, right? But I don't know. But seriously, it's like, you know, we've made lemonade. You can have it really good. You know, some can make it without sugar and it still tastes nice. But when God gives you something, what do you do with it? When you go through something in life, it is not just for that time. God is shaping you for something.
Sure.
To be used so that you can in turn help others. And when I wrote that post, I'm like, there's people reading this. It might be private, but maybe one day I'll take it off private. You know? But when people put in hashtag divorce, I want that to come up.
Sure.
So that they see this and they are encouraged.
Sure.
Right? But it was encouragement for me
Great.
to know that, okay, people always said, and people, my friends, you know, that have been through divorce, right? People that I've spoken to about divorce, say it gets better. One day you'll be on the other side, and when you go through it, you're like, really?
Yeah.
My story is different from your story. How is that going to happen?
Sure.
Right? And when you're on the other side, you sit back and you're thinking, this is what they meant.
Yeah.
And it's not so bad. Yes, it's horrible when you go through it, but you sit on this other side and you're thinking, well, I got here because of God's grace.
Amen.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Do you know when you go through the promises, and my verse through the past 3 years was, the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord is my strength. People will come up to you and say, how are you smiling? I'm like, it's God. It's God. It's
Sure.
the joy of the Lord is my strength. That's what I kept telling myself. The joy of the Lord is my strength. So when you get to that other side, how can you not give glory to God for where He's taken you
Yeah,
to?
sure.
So
That's dope. People say that going through a divorce is like death. You know, I've had several people die in my life, and I just know the pain of that. My parents divorced, so I know that pain. Haven't been divorced. I mean, according to this podcast, I've been divorcing people since I was in grade one. So,
Yeah. You're a pretty tenured veteran.
Right, come on, bro. But I haven't had an official
divorce, and I pray you never do.
Yeah, and I had a friend of mine. We're not close friends anymore. But when he went through a divorce, I was like, shucks, man. I was close to him at that point, and I just like, this does feel like death. But I'm not the one who's divorced. That's obviously I could see what he's going through. So is it like death?
Going through it at the time didn't feel like death. It felt like torture.
Sure.
And I'm not talking about the whole from the time you get asked for a divorce to the end, but I'm talking about everything that leads up to the point of divorce, right?
Ooh, okay.
It's torture. It's like hell, you know, because you never know what's going to happen. And then the divorce comes, and then that's okay. It is like with death, when you're dealing with death, it is the shock that comes with it. And then it's all the steps. And then you get to that end point, and you're like, now I can grieve. Because people going through death, they don't grieve then. They have to go through all the steps of grief. And it's afterwards you're like, okay, so now this person's not here. Right? Now I'm not angry with them anymore. I can't shout at them anymore. I can't talk to them. I can't reach out to them anymore. So now I miss the person. And I think that's the part that is like death. And so a divorce for me is like death. And I'm realizing it now more than ever. And the worst part is you see the person in front of you now. Whereas death in a way is
There's a
easier.
finality to
It's
it.
final. The person's gone. You can't shout at them. You don't see them except for pictures and videos, and you have all the happy memories eventually, right? But with divorce, you are faced with that person. They're there and your kids,
Sure.
you know? And so I think it's yes, it's like death, only different.
Sure.
I can't say better different, worse different.
No, hundreds, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think as I'm hearing what you're saying there, I'm then trying to understand the lead up to it. Like
Yeah.
when you're talking about the leading up to it and the torture associated with it until finalization, what does that look like? Because I think many people, to Black's point, don't have that sort of picture of it's a process.
Yeah.
And then there is pain, suffering that's happening between that until finalization. And then you're entering a new type of pain. So what does that look like?
So this is something that's been on my mind for the past 2 weeks. So 2 weeks ago, on the 27th of August, would have been my 18th wedding anniversary. Okay.
Sheesh.
And that hit me hard. Okay. But it hit me hard the day before, the Saturday. Okay. So 2 weeks ago, it hit me hard. And it was just listening to someone's status, and it was a song. Right. And it's not a song that's related to my ex at all. At all. It's a song that I liked, but it was not a song, but it's a sentimental R&B song. And I was going to work, and I just bawled my eyes out. I'm thinking, Theola, I can't stop crying. What is wrong with you? And you start to worry, and you start to think, what is going on? Because I've been through this. I'm done. I'm stronger. I've been fine. Everybody praises you. Theola, look at you. You look amazing. You're so strong. And suddenly you feel like you're reduced to dust.
Sure.
Right? And it's like, boom.
Instant,
right?
yeah.
An instant. Right? So it's you literally go from that high to that sudden low. Okay? And you start to reflect, and you're thinking, I'm thinking of all the happy memories. It's not the past couple of years or 10 years or whatever. I'm thinking of the lead up to a wedding. And then I'm thinking of the wedding day. And you guys have been there. That excitement is like on that day, like no other, right? I think the thing that compares next is your child's birth, right? Right?
yeah.
That's it. And so you're going through all of this, and you're like, this is happy. And it's the day after the wedding. You can you remember absolutely everything of a happy memory. Right? And so funny you asked that, because now I'm thinking of this the week after the wedding, and being on honeymoon, moving in for the first time, and going through all the firsts that you do, right? And the first meal together that you're cooking together, and you're
Sheesh.
sitting down together, and what you did here and what you cooked, and you remember those, and you're thinking, how do you remember all of these things?
Wow.
But that's a memory that you would sit down with your wives every year and go through, remember when we were doing this now, at this time.
And you're cementing it.
Yeah, and you're like, that was so nice. Remember that person, and I can remember what they were wearing, what they said to us. You remember everything, right, over the couple of days. And those are the happy memories. And you sit there and you think, what happened? Now you're sitting there and you're thinking, what happened? And this last 2 weeks was that up for me. Because last year, I was in my zone where I'm angry. I didn't think about the first anniversary after the divorce, right? That would have been 17 years. But you're also hitting a point where it's 18. 18 is a big number. So in a marriage, I don't think people actually look at 18, they look at 20. But when you're reflecting now, you're looking at 18 as being an adult. You're thinking to reach 18 would have been nice. Because 18, it's 20, then it's 21, then it's 25, then it's that. You're thinking, and you have this in your head now, I'll never reach 18. Okay, if I get married now, I have to get married now to reach 18. I'll be old by then, guys.
Again.
For me, that's, And so you lament all of that. And then that makes you think, so where did it all go wrong? And I, like now I sit there and I try to figure out where it all went wrong. And yes, I do know. And yes, it takes two to tango. Right? It's not just one-sided. But you also sit there and you're thinking, but the other person should have fought for you. Like I sat there, like in my post, it says, I gave the unconditional love, but my person didn't feel my unconditional love and didn't see my unconditional love. So what was I doing wrong?
Sure.
For him not to see that. What did I not see that he was going through, that I ignored it? And then that literally like cancels out the happy memories, right? And then you start to look at what went wrong. And communication not being able to talk. That's why when I told you, it is so good that you guys are here talking to each other about stuff.
Sure.
Because you need that support group,
Yeah.
right? And you need a God-centered support group, right? And if you don't have that, right, and if you're not centered around Christ, then everything will go haywire.
Yeah.
And I look back and I'm like, it wasn't about he did this and she did that. And it was about, did we do things around Christ?
Shucks.
And
Sure.
for me,
Sure.
that is what was the center of it all.
Sure.
Like, we done things around Christ, we would have fought more. And I feel like I was trying, and the
Sure.
other person wasn't trying, and he might be feeling something different.
Yeah,
you
sure.
know. But I feel like if he was doing things along the lines of what Christ would want him to do as a husband, right, we might have survived.
Sure.
Because you would have spoken about it and you would have reached out to other people to help you
Sure.
for that. So it is breakdown. It's various breakdowns. But for me, it was breakdown in communication and breakdown in communication as a couple with Jesus.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That's not a hashtag, but like an important note, which is something we constantly repeat, you know, just
Yeah.
the fundamental stuff and how you see the world, which in our case would be our faith. You know, if there's already misalignment there, it's gonna be seen throughout the whole thing, and that might be, you know, a thing that makes marriage tough, because the very essence of how you see the world, that you're not meeting each other at that point. So that's something we always, I think, go back to. Yeah, you know.
Yeah. It's important to stand together, found firmly
Yeah.
grounded in Christ. It
Yeah.
is really important. You
Yeah.
both need to be on the same page when it comes to that. And if the one is falling, you say, how can I help you?
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Or you pray for them. Even when they don't want that help, you pray for them. And I failed. I failed in that because we take on the world and the world takes on us. And when I say the world takes on us, it consumes us. So you forget, because you start to think in a sinful way, like, I can't be bothered about this person. They don't care about me. Why should I even pray for them?
Sure. Sure.
And do you know how many times I sit back and I look at that, and I did in the past, I'm like, maybe I'm not praying for my husband enough. Maybe I'm not praying at all for him, for my marriage, because I'm so angry. And because all I'm thinking is it's an expectation I have that he should just love me like Christ loved the church. But what does it mean to love your wife like Christ loved the church?
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Christ loves unconditionally. He loves with everything. He's given us all the love he can give us. That's how we're supposed to love our spouses. With all the love, you already have my love. I made that commitment to you. I don't need to prove that love. And we as wives have that expectation. No, you need to show me how you love me. Right? I want the flowers. But when Christ loves you, he's given us all the flowers and we take it for granted, but yet it's there. When you realize, you're like, but God, you love me. You made the stars.
Sure.
The paintings in the sky is there. That is you. You show me every day how you love me. And a husband is supposed to do that every day. It should not be something he thinks about.
Sure.
If he comes home and he sees the kitchen is in a mess and his wife is in a mess, he's like, okay, let me sort that out. Without saying, can I help you sort that out?
Yeah, sure.
Can I clean up the kitchen for you? No, just go do it.
Sure. Yeah.
If
Sure.
if it's raining for a week, does God say, shall I let the sun shine for you?
Dr.
he
James,
do that?
some of us have husbands. We're gonna ask.
So,
My expectations. So this is
Can
me,
I help?
right? I have high expectations yet. Moving on, I don't want to have expectations. And for me,
Sure.
having an expectation of somebody, for me, it was the wrong thing to have.
Sure. What
Sure.
do you mean?
I try moving forward now with every relationship is not having expectation. If I do something for you, I don't expect something in return.
Hundreds.
Right?
Yeah,
And that's the expectation. I'm not going to expect you to love me in the way I want you to love me.
Yeah, sure.
Because if God has placed you in my life, you are going to love me the way God wants you to love me.
1,000. 1,000.
That's how I see it
1,000.
these days. I see it very differently. For me, life is different, right? It is, that's just my personality. And through this divorce, through this last couple of years, especially in this last year, which is comes back to that post, I am healing and I am finding who I was when I was an 18-year-old that just moved to Holland.
Sure.
That was on her own, living
Sure.
with an aunt and uncle who she's
Sure.
never lived with before. And I drew closer to God. And God showed me who I am, who Theola is, not whose daughter you are and whose granddaughter you are and, you know, this and that, or being the physio that studied. I am Theola. I am a child of Christ, and this is who I am.
Sure.
Right? So I am learning to do that. And for me, I can't have an expectation of somebody if I don't know who I am.
Sure.
Right? But even when I do
That's
know
great.
who I am, I can't expect you to just think like me.
Sure.
In fact, we were chatting about that today. What we would define as unconditional love. You know, that unconditional love doesn't mean that I'm not going to challenge my spouse. It doesn't mean that I'm just, you know, or she's not going to challenge me, just love me the way I am, whatever the case is. But unconditional love cannot leave you in the condition it found you in.
Yeah.
Right? It has to grow you, and part of that is posturing yourself to love the other person and not doing that primarily just so that they can love you back.
Yeah.
But I want to love you as best as I can, and the hope is that while I'm doing that, you're doing the same thing. But I don't have to
Yeah.
call that out. I don't have to fight you for that. You know, and hence we agreed to be together to do life
Yeah.
till God calls us, or death
Yeah.
takes one of us, right? So, but I wanna pause here, Dr. James, because I've been this whole time you've been talking. I'm like,
I talk too much, Black. I
you
told
No,
you.
this is
no, this is awesome. I'm thinking about the 18-year-old. You know,
Yeah.
what was her idea of marriage? What was
In
your,
Holland.
What was your ideal? You know, again, there's people who are married who watch this, people who want to get married, and you know, you've kind of been there, and unfortunately have ended where you ended up. And I say unfortunate because nobody wants to divorce, but again, that's where God has you, and God has His plans for why He has you there.
Yeah.
But what was Theola's idea of marriage when she was 18?
It's funny because
Yeah.
now it's 18 years. I would have been married.
Hey.
And 18 years. And I just heard God speaking to me. He's like, you see where I brought you to?
Sure.
And you know, when you look at it that moment, you're thinking it's God appointed. Even
Yeah.
though it was a horrible time, but you
Sure.
look at that and you're thinking, God, you are in control of everything. Right? So as the 18-year-old, of course, I wasn't thinking marriage, but then you're living in another country, you think, life could be good. I couldn't
Yeah.
wait to leave home. And then I didn't know, you know, that I was really going to go. And then you go and you're there, you know. My life became very God-centered because I had him. I had my aunt and my uncle. I'm old, so my only form of communication back then with my parents was maybe a call a month if they could call,
Okay.
or fax.
Chess.
Fax a week.
Come on
Right?
now.
And you know, you don't have the fax, you print it out, and by a week later it's disappeared.
Yeah.
The print is gone. That's how old I am.
Keep hearing
Dear
that
future
sound of
husband.
Class.
Right? But
Class.
so you that's your form of communication, and you're making friends, and yes, you have friends, and so I hung on to him. I hung on to him, and when I look at myself then, I was such a good version of myself compared to the last 18 years, I would say. You know, I had grown spiritually. He was my best friend. I'd get on my bike and
He is Jesus.
He is Jesus.
Okay.
Get on my bike, yeah. If there is another he that I knew back then, come meet me now.
You were the type who was engaged to Jesus.
Dating Jesus.
I'm dating
I
Jesus.
didn't think of it as dating Jesus. I was just, we didn't go to a church that was where I got involved in.
Yeah.
I did, you know, some music stuff at church and whatever, but it wasn't what I wanted to do, the way I wanted to be involved in like I am now at church. But so I had him. I'm on my bike in the mornings and I'm busy talking to Jesus as if he's my friend. So we're not dating him, my best friend. He became
Cool.
my everything, right?
Cool.
So go to bed and you pray and you whatever. And he helps me through that. So what I wanted at the time was a person to complement that. You know, I come from a home where my dad, he loved my mom. He cherished my mother. He appreciated my mother. You know, he ironed her clothes. My dad could cook, bake, sew,
on now.
everything, garden, strip
a
an
real full
engine.
husband.
Come on.
So you see the standards were high, right?
Come
The
on,
standards were high. My mom was treated like a queen, you know, and we came from a godly home. My dad was spiritual. He was a worship leader. He was a lay minister. He went to Bible school. He just didn't get ordained as a minister. So he was always involved in church.
Sure.
And so were we. He was a youth leader, Sunday school, everything, you know. My parents were very involved in church. So I came from that, and that's what I wanted for myself. That when I serve in church, I want somebody like that, but I want somebody to love me in that way. So my standards were high. So that's what I wanted.
I don't
You
think
know?
they're high.
I don't think they're high now. I think they're normal. When you grow up in that environment,
Yeah.
that's what you look for.
Yeah.
Right? You look for that. You look for the person that gives you that adventure that you want in life. And I think people would look at it now, right, and say, oh, you know, boring maybe,
Nah.
you know.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
They're not watching this podcast.
no.
People
Come
think
watch.
that's boring.
What's interesting about the story you're giving, it's like you've been with us while we were shooting these episodes, is we were talking around how culture is a way of life, and that in many ways then sets the expectations that you have of life moving forward. But you then have two different expectations coming together in the context of marriage to then do this thing into the future. And I think what I'm finding fascinating about the story you're telling is, so one, just to say, it's amazing to hear the story, and it's not like you're trying to throw egg on your former partner.
Yeah,
You're like, no,
hundreds.
this is what has
1,000.
happened, and this is my story, and this is how I've experienced it. But also like the ability to reflect and say, okay, I think this is where I had done A, B, and C, and I'm like, that's incredible. How from your process, you said you're healing, from your process, how has that actually evolved? Because I'm hearing at some stage there was anger. Now it's, okay, I'm able to now reflect and look back and see what made sense, what didn't. But I'm more interested in like what's happening behind it. How are you learning these lessons?
How did you get to that
Yeah,
point?
how are you able to do all of that? Sure.
So again, you get to that point of breakdown, but you don't know you're going through the breakdown.
Sure.
It's only when you sitting afterwards and you're reflecting and you're like, okay. Instead, you do life. And that's, I think, what I did, because this is part of marriage. People have problems and people fix it. So it's a roller coaster until the roller coaster doesn't end. And your happy days are less than the unhappy days. Right? And then you go through the happy times, you think, that's what life is all about. Marriage is hard, but it's how you come out in the end, right? And I think that's what people look for. You're like, that was me. I got married for life. We said that just now, right? You get married for life. That's marriage. That is, we made our vows. We made a vow to stick it out, no matter what. You know, every hard time, every good time, you're there for each other. And then you're like, okay, but this is outweighing the bad times are outweighing the good times. So there's no balance there, right? And it's only when you come to that point and you look at it and you think, okay, so this is not what God wanted, right? Clearly, this cannot be what God wanted, and I can't sit here now and say, oh, that's not what God wanted for me. right? But I can sit here now and say, that's not what God wanted for me. God doesn't want it to be hard all the time. God has given us marriage to enjoy, and to enjoy each other, and to enjoy family, and to enjoy fellowship and communion with Him, right? He created it for our good. Not for our bad.
Sure.
You know, you can't always have those lessons. You're like, okay, God, we're going to use this fight now to help somebody else. Okay? No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
In that moment, you're thinking, how is this going to work out for somebody else
you
in the
doing now?
future? Exactly, right? But so when you hit that point and it's like, that's not working out, that's when you realize, like, no, this is not what God wanted for me. But even then, I didn't see it then. It's only when I literally got off the roller coaster. And it's not now. I got off the roller coaster, I think it was 2019, right?
Sure.
Literally. And I said, I cannot do this anymore because that is so one-sided. I'm giving and I'm giving and I'm giving and I'm giving. And the other person's not trying. Right? And you think, but this is not why I got married. That was not my idea of marriage as a 19-year-old or as a 24-year-old. That's not what I wanted for marriage. I thought that we can withstand everything and go through everything together, like my parents did, like my grandparents did, you know. And you're there later on, and it's like 60 years down the line, and you're together, and you think, we made it. Right?
Yeah.
But when you feel like you're giving, and I'm sure my ex thought the same thing, you know, and that's, again, the communication. Like, he never came to me and said, oh, this is how I'm feeling. Can we do something about it?
Sure.
Right? Can we talk about it? And then as the wife, you feel, oh, it's his duty to do it now because I've tried. Right? And then I'm nagging, right? So no, it's always the other person. We try and brush everything off in life, right? It's the other person's fault, right? So now you sit there and you reflect. Now I can reflect and say, well, I wish I did try harder, but I also wish that he tried harder, you know, to fix it. But you go through that, and I jumped off the roller coaster. Right? And when I jumped off the roller coaster, I started to see things differently. Because I felt like I'm on the outside looking in. And you're like, Theola, this is not right. You should not be treated like this. This is a union. Right? You don't have a boss. God is your boss. That's not your boss. I'm not the boss. So we can't do this the way we're doing it. And you can't keep going through the lows the way you go through the lows. And you jump back on the roller coaster. And I said, I'm off. And, you know, I got off emotionally, mentally. And I got off the roller coaster. And then I started to see things. And then 2020 happened and lockdown happened. And I'm like, okay, God, so you're going to use this to fix it now. Because we're at home, I worked, and this is going to be our time. And we're going to sort it out. And for that moment, it was kind of bliss. Kind of. I'm not saying completely bliss, but it was kind of bliss. Because you're there all the time, right? You're together and your kids, and you suddenly, for the first time in years, I don't think my little boy ever had supper around the table during the week. And there we are, sitting as a family and having dinner, right? And spending time and doing things in the kitchen. And those are the things I wanted for my life. I wanted that person there while I'm doing things and he's busy doing things. I don't have to ask, or he doesn't have to say, can I help you with anything? No, just come help, you know, that kind of thing. And then something happens and it's boom. And you're like, oh, okay, I can't do this. Right? But you're there still, because what do? This is marriage. I made a vow. We made a vow to God, right? In front of people. So we're going to stick it out. And that's what you do. You stick it out. But the hurt came when the other person didn't stick it out. And you don't understand why he's not sticking it. Why is he not fighting for me? You know? Why are you so bent on breaking my trust? You know, and for me, I'm the kind of person, if I trust you for life until you break it. That's me. That's my personality. I will trust you. So when I share my information with you, I trust you, you know, until you break it. And So, does that answer your question?
It does.
It does. Here you speak. I'm thinking about, especially for girls, right, who are watching this and are like, yeah, you see, like, this doctor's story, this lady's story, is making me realize how much I'm scared to get married. I don't want to end up there. Surely there was, you know, especially at the beginning, no point where you thought, there's major red flags here where this thing's going to end, right? What if that's me? What if I get into this thing and like 10 years later, I realize, smack man, this thing is, you know, to use your words, it's not what God wanted for me. Yeah, I don't want to do this, man. I don't want to get married. I'm not doing it.
So, trust God. Trust God. I think I saw what I wanted to see in my future husband at the time, who I thought was my future husband at the time. Okay, don't get me wrong, I loved him. Okay, but maybe I thought that that was the person God wanted for me, that I prayed for. When I look at it, I saw everything, but maybe God had somebody else for me. Right? The person that was for me, that complimented me in every single way. And I mean every single way. We all have boxes. Women have boxes. I'm sure guys have boxes. Right? Like, I mean, like tick, 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 tick. And when I look back now and I'm like, God, you were there the whole time. And I thought that this is what you wanted. But maybe that's not what you wanted. And I saw what I wanted. But when I look
would that be
back,
what you qualify as ticking boxes?
yeah,
That
I
that
had-
somebody ticks the boxes that you want,
yeah.
but you don't engage God.
But I'm not ticking the boxes that God wants.
Okay.
So I think that this is what I prayed for fervently. This is the person I wanted. When I meet the person, that's the person. I will see the person, and that's it. And he will do A, B, C, D, and E, F, G, until Z, whatever it is, right? And I thought I saw that.
Sure.
In the meantime, that is not what when I look back, there were red flags. When I look back now, right? The red flags were there, but back then, when you're in love, do you look at red flags? Right?
They
We
look-
don't look
they
at
look
red
pink.
flags.
No, man.
They look even white.
Pink's too close to red.
Pink's too close to red, because if they were pink, I'd have doubt, right?
Yeah, 100.
But when you just see that person, you're like, oh, Lord, this is what I prayed for. But then
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
obstacles in the way. You're like, now I look back and I'm like, God, I ignored them.
Sure.
I ignored them. And I didn't listen to wisdom. And listening to your parents is very important, right? And at the time, I didn't listen to my parents. I didn't, right? And then eventually my parents gave in, you know. But now when I look back to every single thing my dad had warned me about, it came true.
Sure,
And he's dead 10 years.
sure.
Every
Sure.
single thing, right?
Sure.
So if I have to say something to anybody out there, I would say, listen to wisdom and listen to the Holy Spirit. When something is of God, there's no obstacles in the way. There's no obstacles in the way. God's not going to make you fight for something that he has in his will for you. You don't have to fight for that.
Yeah.
When it's of when it comes from him, there's no struggle.
Yeah, sure.
It just flows freely.
Well,
you
at least
know?
a necessary struggle.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. You know, he's like, no, I want this
Simba's
for you.
thinking, I just fought with my wife this morning. what does this mean? What are you saying?
We good. Not this morning.
Speaking of wisdom, yeah, I just want to bring this up, you know, 'cause Simba alluded to it earlier on, that in sharing your story, you know, there's no way in which you're trying to badmouth your ex-husband or anything like that, but then somebody might ask, hey man, why are you even doing this? You know, so we get you putting it out, but why are you even doing this? Don't you think it might be a bad look on you sharing your story, etc., etc.? Yeah.
Well, not because you asked me black. No. you twisted my arm.
Yeah. She's here under duress.
Under duress. Yeah. I'd like my story heard because it's not, divorce is not all that bad.
Sure.
And like what I said, you don't get married to get divorced.
Sure.
And you go through it and you're like, okay, Lord, it helps you to reflect on my relationship with Christ. What did I do? Fine, you allowed this to happen because God is not the kind to say, oh, you getting married to somebody else that I don't have in store for you, or that's the person for you, but you guys haven't walked the walk with me. So you're on your own. No, God in our sin still holds us together. He holds us in his hand because we are his children. That is unconditional love. No matter what we do, he's like, I've got you.
Sure.
So I will still make this work, right? But put me first, right? But if you don't put me first, I can't help you. Right? Because I'm coming after you, but you're walking away from me.
Sure.
So that's how I see it. And that's the important thing here. That's the message I want to give out. It is okay to get divorced. You know, there used to be the stigma, especially from the generation I come with. It's a stigma. God has given me that peace that I don't care what anybody thinks.
Sure.
I'm divorced. I hate the word divorce, by the way. Right? Right now, I see myself as single. I've been married. Right? I don't ever see myself as married, unfortunately. I have 2 beautiful kids from it. I do not regret that part of it.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of regrets. But I am divorced. My marriage did not work. But where is Jesus in all of this?
Sure.
Right? And if I can be there telling my story and show people that you're going through stuff, but God does take you out and he does pick you up and he puts you up in a high place that only he can do.
Sure.
Right? So it's okay. It's okay. Sometimes it's beyond our control. If I could, and if we were both on the same page, we would have fought it out. And we would have been there, still standing. And we both have a story to tell and say we survived it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But right now I'm a survivor too.
Sure.
Right? And I want people to know that it's okay. Right? And you go through that dip and that torturous time, right? But you come out on the other end. And for me, silver is my thing because silver will burn and tarnish, but you just polish it, right?
It's dope.
There she is with the poetry.
It's the element.
I
It's
think
the elements. It's the elements. Silver's my thing. I don't want much. I don't want platinum or gold or
Silver
diamonds.
there.
Give me silver and I'm fine
Come on,
because
there.
when you tarnish, God polishes you down.
Sure.
And that's what he's done, you know.
Yeah.
That's why when people say, how do you do it? I'm like, it's Jesus. I had a cousin who told me this a while back. She says, it's Jesus. It's just Jesus. And that's what I've learned to say because now I have a story, right? I survived it. I survived a really horrible time. You know, that wasn't just the breakdown, and I'm not going to go into that.
Yeah, sure.
Of my marriage. It was a lot that came with it. But God gets you through it.
Sure.
Right?
yeah. I mean,
It sounds so simple.
No, not
And
at
yet
all.
at the end of the day, it is him. Just keep your eyes on him. You find yourself rooted in Christ.
Yeah.
Right? If you're rooted in Christ, you're going to flourish. My favorite psalm is Psalm 1.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
He is like
yeah,
a tree planted by the streams of water.
Come on.
Right? And that's what you want to be.
Come on now.
I mean, I'm just processing that all that you're sharing. This is impactful on another level because I think you've spoken to the. So exactly your story, I think, is gonna.
I'm so full of
reverberate.
myself. Ask my patients. Like, if any one of them are listening, they go like, "Yeah, that's Fiona."
So I mean, you've spoken about what you would tell a girl aspiring for marriage, etc. And I think this is such impactful information. One, because the person aspiring to it now has knowledge of some of the lessons you've learned. One of the things I think that sometimes doesn't happen or doesn't happen enough in my view is how we can learn from each other in terms of our relationship experience, whatever that spectrum is.
Sure.
And wondering then, when you are sitting on the other side, I mean, you say you got off the roller coaster 2019. What would you say to couples who are maybe in that space, considering divorce, struggling? Now that you're off the roller coaster, you've experienced what you've experienced, you're single. What are you saying to them?
Again, trust God.
Sure.
But that sounds so easy to say because in that moment you're like, God, where are you? How do I trust you when my world is falling apart? You know, but get help. Get help. There is help available. And you are ashamed to go and talk to someone about it because not everybody's going to know your story. I mean, I think you guys can you are a witness to this. I walked around here as everything's fine. You'd see my ex, you know, with me and my kids, and we're a happy family. And people would stop you and say, we didn't know what was happening. You know, you guys look so happy. How did this happen? Family were like, we can't believe it's you guys, you know? And don't put on that front. That's what I would say, but you don't know it at the time. But this is the voice I have now, and to say, look for the signs. They are there. Don't hide things. If you feel like you're hiding something, talk about it. Get help firstly, but if you at that point before you need the help, talk to each other.
Sure.
Sit down, make time every single day in your day schedule, that end of daytime. Everything is busy. Everybody is busy these days. We don't even have 5 minutes for ourselves. Like, how am I going to give you 5 minutes, right? But my thing was, I wanted that at the end of the day, and this is my view of marriage. Sorry, from before, is I want to be able to sit down with my husband at the end of the day, lie in bed, read something together, read the Bible, pray about it, and talk. And I got that in the beginning, and then the next thing, the person's lying on the couch and they're too tired to come to bed. I'm like, come to bed, have a cut-off time, 10 o'clock, let's get into bed, let's read, let's pray, let's talk. Right? It's that intimacy time.
Sure.
Right? And it's that intimacy with God that couples need, because how do you impact the world if you're not touching base with God and each other? You don't know what the day was like.
Yeah.
Right? And for me, it is talk about it. If you're going through what I went through, still try and see that person in a different light. It's hard. It's hard when that person is in front of you and you're like, oh, I can't believe you're doing this to me. So go and talk to somebody. Have a friend. Right? I am surrounded in this place, even over the years, you know, there are people that are there for you. There are people that see you, that know kind of what you're going through. And if you don't talk about it and if you hold it all inside, when it happens, it explodes. And then people are like, what happened?
What
We didn't know.
What would you say kept you not speaking?
That I didn't know.
What does that mean?
It means I thought this was normal.
Sheesh.
I thought that this was every marriage.
Sheesh.
That is terrible.
No, it's not. You know why? Because it makes me think of, and I think we've tried to clear this up like several times when people say, but you guys always portray marriage like it's a hard thing. Right?
Yep.
And so then when people get into it, maybe they hear a lot of married people speaking about how we need to slug it out and it's tough, and you think that's what you're doing. Right? So I'm like, it's not horrible. Although, and we've said this, the only reason why we would sometimes speak about the hardness of marriage and having to work at it is because of this other, it's a reaction. This glamorized Instagram couple goals.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, look at us. And I'm like, well, it's not reality. Like,
Not
that's
even
not-
Instagram, it's church.
Sheesh.
It happens at church.
She went there.
Come
Okay.
on now.
No, it's
We
the
here now.
truth. So
Sheesh.
the dark side of me starts to look at married couples very differently. Seriously.
Yeah, you're like,
and you start looking, you're thinking, are you really happy? Are you really happy? What happens behind the scenes? Literally, what happens behind the scenes? Today I sit here and I'm looking at what's happening behind the scenes here, right? What happens behind the scenes? Are you really happy? Does anybody know that I came to church with a huge fight in the morning trying to get my husband out of bed to come to church? And then you come to church and there you are, sitting in church and all smiley and worshiping and listening to the sermon and making your notes. Hi, how are you? Oh, it's so nice to see you. But did anybody know what happened before that? And then you sit there, right? And you start thinking, this is normal. But now you start looking at it and thinking, how many of you are hiding something and you're not approaching it, and instead you go deeper into yourself thinking that this is so depressing. Look at how happy they are. And I'm not this happy. Look at that husband holding his wife's hand in church. Right? And I don't even want to hold your hand. Right?
Sheesh.
We become neutralized and thinking that this is normal. Right? Talking about it changes things, but how do you know you talk about it? I'm still at that point where I'm trying to figure out, how do you know? Like, how do you guys know when you're having problems in your marriage and you think, okay, this is what everybody else goes through, but now we're unique, and we don't need to talk to anybody else about it.
Well,
Right?
I always, and this probably should be my middle name, communication. That's the one thing I
Now-
keep drumming.
That's me. And when you have a partner who does not want to communicate, that's the hardest thing. That's the hardest thing. You'll have an introvert and an extrovert, right? And we're supposed to complement each other. And that person doesn't want to talk. I had a non-talker.
Hectic.
So
This sounds stupid, but I'm going somewhere. Did you try writing? Because since you write so
Eloquently.
excellently,
no, I need someone to do admin for me. I have a pile of notes, clinical notes that will fill the ceiling. I need admin. I need someone to be there writing while I say all these things.
Voice recording.
I haven't though, but I like writing. Clearly posts like that.
I think somebody would hear what you just said, which is, I'm a talker. I was with a non-talker. It's actually a conversation I'm having with a friend of mine. It's from a episode on vulnerability. And the thing I was advocating for there is men are designed differently than women, obviously. And the way we would consider how we approach vulnerability is totally different from women.
Yep.
And I think then what unconditional love calls us to do is to meet each other where the other person is naturally gifted, right? So, or naturally wired. So if women are wired more naturally to express their feelings and men are wired to express their thoughts, let's try and meet each other there. And it's going to be awkward for both of us because that's not how we're naturally wired, but that's what being vulnerable is. And that's what actually, being naked in front of each other is.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to stumble and trying to express my heart because it's not natural to me, and you might stumble trying to just be cognitive the whole time. And you're a doctor, you could probably do that easy. But anyway, I think you're better than some doctors. But anyway,
Fine, I'll let it go from black. Thank you.
so I was a bit thinking with this with communication, So I'm like, yes, somebody might not be a talker, but what if a lot of us spend time reading stuff on social media.
Yeah.
So even just sending a WhatsApp and saying, hey, this is how I'm feeling, but it's okay. Maybe you could give me 5 minutes of talking, but I will
So-
spend time writing,
Compromise, Black.
Yes.
Compromise.
Yes.
And like I said, you're always giving. You feel like you're always giving. And you're
Why do you
always
emphasize feel?
conforming.
Why do you emphasize feel?
I don't know. Maybe because you made to feel like you're not giving.
Okay.
Maybe that's why.
Okay.
You're made to feel like, oh, you're just taking. But in the meantime, you will know how much you put into your marriage. And the other person says, oh, but you didn't do this and this and this, and you're like, but in my head I do. I'm here. I'm here. And the other person says, I'm here. So you have me. What's wrong with that? But you have to meet each other halfway. You have to. This is when the Bible says the two shall become one. Way back in the beginning. The two will become one. Right? It's not just physical. it is it's a joining of two different people. And you should be able to think alike. So
Yeah.
we spoke about it earlier, when you walk into that house and your house is a mess, right? And your wife is a mess, and you're like, I'm not even going to think about it. I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to say, hey, do you need help with anything?
Yes.
It's the two become one is at that point as well.
Sure.
It might seem silly and where men are wired differently, whatever, but you're going to become one. You're thinking, she can't do it right now. I'm just going to do it, and I'm still going to be there for her. It's compromise. It's out of my comfort zone, but I'm going to be there. If fighting in a certain way is what she does and I fight in a different way, I need to come to a middle ground and say, I'm going to meet you there.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of me thinking that I'm here and you need to meet me there the whole time, but I'm going to come here where we both are on the same level. And it hurts me to do that, but I'm going to be there and I'm going to do it this way for you for now. And that's the compromise. It's finding the middle ground, right? And saying, okay, I don't want to listen, but I'm going to sit here and I'm going to listen to you because it's important to you that I listen to you, right?
Yeah.
It is meeting the person halfway. As much as it's out of your comfort zone, you're like, but you married me like this and whatever. I'm like, but I'm sorry. You know, this is just, and we all change. That's the other thing. We don't see that we change. It's how you change. Change is not supposed to go in that direction in marriage. It's supposed to go together. So that we are supposed to make each other better. We're not supposed to drive each other away. Right? And that's what it is to be one. Right? I am the better version of you and you are the better version of me. When you say my other half, what does that mean?
Sure.
Is it just, that's my wife, that's my husband? No, what is the other half? So for me, it's the compromise. Like, okay, she doesn't want to talk, but she'll read a post or she'll read my message that's meant for her, and I will send that to her and she will listen.
Yeah.
Right? Or she's going to have to say, actually, I got no time for this. I just want to keep quiet. But you say, can you at least hear me out?
Sure.
I think a lot of problems are solved with just hearing somebody out
Yeah.
and saying, okay, my instinct is to run. I'm going to get out of here. And that's how I deal with the situation. Right? But your instinct is to say everything you want to say. I'm that person. I need to say my piece. I need to
needs
be
to go
heard.
out.
I need to...
I think that's
for
just
me
a
it's
woman
over.
thing.
No, it's also a man thing. I need to be heard. I want it to be
Doesn't your
heard.
wife want to say everything?
No, so when we got married, our my aunt, one of my mom's friends,
I
gave
was
us
just trying to prove a
two
point.
tins. No, I have to
No,
say
yeah,
this.
tell her. I want to hear.
It adds
I
to
wanna
her
hear.
point. 2 tins, 2 tin cups. And she said, your tin cup is 1,000 words. Her tin cup is 10,000 words.
What?
Just
I'm
deal with
proving the
it.
point here today, right?
Hundreds. Because that's
So, agreed.
that's the first dynamic we learned about our fighting. My wife wants to talk now.
I want to talk now. I want to be heard.
I'm like, listen, I will hear you, but I just need to process what
Black,
just
at
happened.
the end of the day, I'm a lover, not a fighter.
I know.
But I want to fight to be able to love.
I know, but I'm just saying, love me by letting me go.
Give me a second.
So this story I heard of this couple, right? Brilliant. Similar thing. Woman wants to talk now. So they fight. The husband gets up and he leaves. Right? And so then she's like, you're not gonna leave me. I'm talking to you. And she charges after him. You wanna come back in this house, blah, blah? And he's just walking, bro. Come back. Blah. So anyway, he eventually stops, calls her mom. It's like, yo, listen, please talk to your daughter, right? Because like she's killing
on my
me
neck.
right? Gives the wife the phone. The wife then talks to the mom, right? And then the mom is like, yo, listen, just don't pester him, just let him be, right? He'll come back. Men are like that. He wants to go think, etc., etc. So then she cries, because obviously now the mother has disarmed her, right?
Now I'm dying inside to
Yeah.
say
Disarm. So then she cries and she's like, well, if he leaves, he'll never come back. because obviously she's had men leave her, right? So then she's like, if he leaves,
There we go. That's
If he
get to
leaves-
another point.
if he leaves, he'll never come back. So he hears that and turns around and says, listen, I'm not that, right? I am coming back, but I need you to let me go think. Because if I don't think, then I will leave and not come back.
That is a sweet guy.
See?
Yeah.
That's us. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yep. I am not leaving. I just need to think. I just need to go think. I need to reason out all of this stuff. I need to fight with myself. I need to scream, shout at the wall, and come back and be like, yo, listen, okay, let's iron
Let's
this
unpack.
out, right? That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
In the heat of the moment.
It is hard. But it's the compromise you were talking about.
Get back here now.
It's the
If I have to throw
compromise.
something at you to
talking
stop you, I will do that.
I know.
But at some point, the compromise also has to be. So, in premarital counseling, we
Yeah,
had 5
yeah.
points that we had to put down, and it was laminated and given to us on the day of our wedding.
Jeez.
That were how to fight or how to deal with anything. And you know, there were a couple of it, and the last one was give it 24 hours.
Ooh, which is counter. Don't sleep on a.
So this is me. This is when you ask the 18-year-olds all coming back, Simba. Don't go to bed angry. I have that in my life. I hate going to bed angry. And I feel like I've been hit in the stomach and I've kicked myself in the stomach when the amount of times I go to bed angry. And because the Bible says, don't let the sun go down on your anger. And that's it. I hate going to bed angry. I hate being an angry person, you know, contrary to my kids' belief and maybe my mom and, you know, everybody else. I hate being an angry person.
Wait for them to turn 21.
Yeah, I'm a happy person by nature, and I want everybody to feel that joy and the joy that God gives you, right?
Yeah.
So you hate going to bed angry. So that's the other reason. And I see that last point, and I'm like, how do I do this? And at some point, I looked at that recently, and I'm like, but God, that should have also been the other way around. Every now and again, that's how He deals with conflict. It's not how I deal with conflict. I actually can't calm down until I've said what I needed to say, and I need to stick it out and say, we're making our peace now, and for now, we won't go to bed angry. But can we resolve this in the morning? Can we just meet at some middle point and say, okay, can we pick it up tomorrow? But know that I'm listening to you, but I might not respond right now. But I'm here holding your hand. And we can achieve it. It might be like that's maybe an expectation I have.
No, but that's good.
But maybe we can achieve it. And maybe for now we say, okay, I need to walk out, but can I pray first before I walk out?
1,000.
Can I have that at least and
1,000.
say, okay, I'm sorry I can't give you your answer now.
Yeah.
I can't do this now. But meet her at that point where she feels this
1,000.
is it. But it's something that you have to talk about and say, this is how we resolve a conflict or partially resolve the conflict. Right?
That's good. Yeah.
And that helps me to move forward and that helps you to move forward. And tomorrow, you might say, we're not even going to talk about it.
Yeah.
But don't ever let something sit and you bring it up years later. That for me was the worst because I would stand there saying, huh? Literally, it would hit me hard. It's as good as getting a slap in the face. You're like, but we walked away from that. I walked away from that because I said my piece. And so for me, and maybe most women, I say what I want to, or people that handle conflict in that way where they say what they need to, I've shut the door on it, it's gone. I've forgotten about it, I've forgiven you, I've forgotten. I literally have forgotten.
Sure.
So when your person stands in front of you 10 years later and says, but on that day you did
said
this, and
this.
I'm like, but I moved on.
You don't even
Because
remember the details.
I don't even know the details, but you know every detail. Don't hold a grudge.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because that grudge sits inside of you and it builds up the bitterness. And you start to harden your heart. And you start to show that person your hardened heart. And that person starts to harden their heart.
Sure. I mean, I'm just as you're sharing that story, I'm like, yo, that's interesting. So I one of the things I find interesting, particularly around the issue of conflict, is I know there were studies done. I can't remember what exactly they were comparing, but after I think was it 9/11, they sort of bring people into the room and say, "What do you remember of the day?" etc. etc. Put it together, and it's like some of the stuff that they were saying happened actually didn't happen.
Wow.
It's the way you've been replaying
Yes.
that and
To start
having it
believing that
fester
narrative, yeah.
and building the narrative according to what you may have then seen as a shot on TV about 9/11 or whatever. And I think for me that's always stuck
Yo.
with me because that's it. Like a grudge where you're not talking
Sheesh.
about stuff is, and I'm not saying that you're making stuff up, please. But you run the risk of having a narrative playing in your head that's
Yeah.
actually not what happened.
Yeah.
So that's the one part. And then I think as we were talking, I was like, I wonder, because you do hear, and we say it a lot, like guys and girls deal with things very differently. And there's usually the archetype to say men want to go inside and process and ladies want to let it out. And I'm like thinking of the other person on the other side who's like, yeah, no, I'm a guy and I want to say it now. And
Yeah.
I'm a woman and I need time.
There are women like that.
Yeah.
I am yet to meet them.
So for me,
Maybe I'll become them.
yeah. For me, I think it depends on what the situation is.
Yeah. it's
Like, how deep is
true.
it?
Yeah,
That, like, is this something that's to the core of who I am? That is like, nah, I can't sleep without us addressing this particular thing. So for me, it's like there's a spectrum of things. And I suppose when we always circle back to this, relationships are communication.
Yeah.
Like, bro.
Why is it that this person
Yeah.
feels they need to say this now
Yes.
and not later?
Yes.
And for the other person who wants to say it now, understand also why this person wants time to process it before they respond. And again, that's the give and take of the relationship. How are we going to do this thing?
Yeah.
And to your point, one is here. How do we find each other?
Yeah.
I think that's so, so profound. And
It's a word, bro.
it really
Yeah.
is. It really
Yeah.
is. I think what I'm wondering now is, so we've gone advice to single people going into marriage. We've gone marriage, advice to people in marriage having gone through what you've gone through. And now I'm like, okay, so what's the dynamic now after divorce? You've got kids. There's this idea of co-parenting and all of these things. This person's still some way, shape, or form in your life. How are you moving forward?
Oh, that's the hard part. That is not the easy part, you know. Again, you go through, and when you were talking, I said, oh, this is what was there. Miscommunication grows trouble,
Quote that.
right? Really.
Quarter
And
bar.
even in divorce, miscommunication grows trouble, right? It is hard. It is hard for me to look at this person now and look at him and say, you walked away from me. You walked away from us. I stood there. I fought with every obstacle. I stood there. I was there. You didn't see that I was there. But now you're in my space. Right? Now I have to raise my kids with you. And then I say something and you still don't understand me. Like you didn't back then. And it sits there because you're like, I still am not heard. You know, that's the hard part. It's like you still don't know me. And at that point, you realize this person was not for me.
Sure.
Right? And that might be the healing part that comes in when you look at it and you say, was I walking according to God's plan? So how do I move forward with this? It is God. So the thing that happened a couple of months ago is I sat down with this person, right, during a storm, a proper outside hailstones, and he was stuck in my house for that hour or so. And
Not
I'm
metaphorical.
Like, no,
a real
like
story.
God knew what was going to happen. And when you go through divorce or separation and people say, don't expect that sorry, don't expect that apology, don't expect that person to come to you and say or acknowledge what they've done or the remorse. And I wanted to see the remorse. I wanted, even before the divorce, I wanted to see remorse. I want you to see how you hurt me. I want you to acknowledge how you hurt me. And just a simple, I'm sorry I did this to you, doesn't cut it for me. I want you to see if you were the person for me, right? You were the man I gave my life to, my body to, right? You should know me, right? And I want to see that coming from you. And like, I am so sorry that we had to go through this. And I didn't, let's work it out. Instead, I get asked for a divorce. So what I'm trying to say is the lemons, the thorns, actually the thorns more than the lemons. It's the thorns that are there, that were there over the years, right? The thorns are there. And the person's not noticing how bruised you were, how deeply you were cut by those thorns, right? And they still don't see it. And then what they do is they say, I'm sorry, but it's not working out, and I want a divorce.
Sheesh.
And you feel like you've been kicked in the stomach. Like literally, Iron Man came in and he threw you against the wall, and you are not Captain America, and you fall to the ground.
I'm a civilian.
Right? But that's how you feel. So you sit with all of this inside of you, Simba, and it's brewing. It's brewing. Miscommunication grows trouble, right? And it's brewing, and you get angry. And you're like, how can you not see that I'm hurting? How can you not see that I've been poked by these thorns? And not try and pick me up after all that I've been through with you, for you, because of you, right? You start thinking very selfishly, right? You're not thinking what that person's going through, because all you see is, I've been hurt, I've been struck down, and you're not picking me up. What do you expect your other half to do? Pick you up,
Sure.
right? A person going through a stroke, the other half is dead, and the other side picks it up and says, okay, I'm going to help you lift your arm up, right? But that person's not doing that for you, so you start to get bitter, and then everything goes through, and quick, and you sit there, and that is why I probably didn't feel the pinch or the sting of the first wedding anniversary, after the divorce, because you're angry. So it makes everything afterwards harder, right? So people would say, you're not going to get the sorry. But when you pray, and when you ask God, and you know what? I can't say I went down on my knees. I can't say I said, oh, Lord, today I pray for this, and you're going to give me the closure I need. My thing about asking God for something, He knows she asked me. And I leave it there, because that's what we're meant to do. I asked you, I leave it at your feet. You know what I want. You know my thoughts, right? I will ask you again if I remember, but I've asked you that because you know my heart.
Sure.
And I'm not going to repeat myself. Maybe it's my stubborn nature again, and that might be what my ex-husband saw. She's stubborn. Yes, I'm stubborn. I'm a stubborn person. I'm resilient. I'm tough. I'm hard. But a couple of months ago, when that storm happened, and I'm like, I need to talk to you about something. And the kids were around, and I spoke. And I spoke my mind, and that's when it hit me about compromise. And I'm like, but you know this about me. This is how I handle a conversation. This is how I talk. I will interrupt you when you speak. That is just my nature. I'm that kind of person. I'm passionate about something. I'm like, no, that's wrong. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to talk about it, right? So that's what you fell in love with. Why was I never allowed to speak? Why did it always have to be the way you wanted it to be, and the conversation go that way, right? And that made him stop in his tracks. And for the first time in a very long time, after like maybe half an hour of talking, I felt like I was talking to the person that I fell in love with again. Like, I got your attention now, because now you see me as Theola. Now you see me. But why did it take all of this for you to see me? And in that evening, I got the closure I wanted. I might never have, I don't even remember if he said, I'm really sorry for what I've done, and this is what I did, and whatever. But for me, it was the acknowledgement and the fact that I was heard. That was my closure. And ever since then, I feel like I closed the door on it. And that was the point everybody said, wow, you're glowing, you're stronger. And that was Jesus. And people, I've told people I got the closure I wanted. I didn't get the down on my knees. I'm so sorry. I did this and that, whatever. It's all my fault. No, it takes two, and you realize at that point that made co-parenting easy. But
Sure.
that's there. It doesn't mean it's easy. It is hard. Right? There's days I'm sure he looks at this and he thinks, I'm so glad I walked away from that. And there's days when I'm like, I dodged a bullet. So it's how God gets you through it. I'm trying to be so godlike about it and Christian-like, but I fail every single day.
Sure.
I fail in my thoughts.
Sure.
I fail in every way when it comes to that person. And I have to remind myself, you have 2 kids with him.
Sure.
No matter how you feel. I mean, I look at him and I'm like, I can't imagine being married to him.
Sure.
And that's hard, imagine.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But you try to not have that resent in you and that hatred, and you don't want to show it. But at the same time, you start to guard your heart because because vulnerability, it takes a person who knows you for you to be vulnerable with them, right? And when that person knows you or thinks they know you, you can still be vulnerable because it's comfort. It's what feels familiar.
Sure.
And that's what we want, right? And maybe way back when I met him, it felt familiar. Like that's why it ticked the boxes, right? But it wasn't the right boxes, maybe.
Sure.
So now you look at it and you're like, Lord, help me each day. Help
Yeah.
me to do the right thing. Help me to never let my kids know my dislike for that person, right? They will know that I've been hurt by that person, but may they also know that he was also equally hurt by me. I want to be gracious. Grace is something that God gave to us freely. Why can we not give it to the other person
Come on
that hurt us? And that's hard.
Come
It's
on
easy
now.
to receive. It's so nice to receive, but to give it, it's like a life-changing thing. Yeah, it takes a lot of strength to give grace. But
Takes
God
grace
gives
to
it
give grace.
Exactly, but God gave it to us, so why should we not give it to others?
Oof.
And that challenges me every day. Say the right things. Don't badmouth the person. And it's hard, but it's a conscious. You have to remind yourself every day,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
That your kids are watching.
Sure.
The world is watching. So when you come onto a platform like this, you have to think, who's listening to this?
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? What are they going to get from it? Because
Yeah.
my life is supposed to reflect God's life.
Sure.
I'm supposed to bring Christ to the world.
Sure.
Am I going to bring Christ to the world? I mean, lately, the words come out of my mouth. It's not nice. My mother's going to listen to this and she's going to be like, what? But God challenges me,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? He challenges me and he's like, I've let you do. This is unconditional love. I've let you do what you need to do. Now focus.
Sure.
Right? I'm still here in your sin. I am still holding you. So why can you not extend grace to this person and that person? Because I'm giving you that grace. So start living up. Start stepping up.
Sure.
Live the life that I need you to live. Not that you want to live.
Sure.
We're not closing, but what would you say to us as husbands now, considering what you've gone through?
Listen. Listen to your wives. When they're hurting, women have a way of communicating their hurt. And it might not be with their voices. It might be through their actions.
They're not going to cook.
Be there for they're not gonna cook. Exactly.
That hurts.
So learn to cook.
Then we'll forever fight.
No, learn to
Because she'll
cook.
be hurt. She doesn't cook. I'll just cook and not talk to her.
Maybe that's why my father cooked.
No, he was happy.
No, he cooked.
He's a full husband.
Yeah, he's a full husband.
So,
Yeah. I think communicate, listen, really listen, and be there. Be there for your wife and know that you are going to go through ups and downs. But also make sure that you know what is right. What are the right ups and downs and what are the wrong ups and downs? I never knew that. And if I can teach people that, like, I question. I'm not perfect in this. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. But when young people come to me, and I see a lot of people, you know, in a week, in a month, in a year, and from different walks of life, different races, and when they talk to me, and I have that nature that everybody just opens up to me, right? Maybe it's because I inflict pain and they have to talk to me, right? But there is such a thing as red flags,
Sure.
and a little lie can lead to major things. And when I look at the little lie that I was fed, it led, because I allowed it to happen, to the biggest lie that ruined my life. Right? At the time. I'm not saying my life is ruined, you know, for good, but the red flags are important. Right? And those red flags don't disappear if you haven't approached it. So you cannot ignore it, because like I said, we all change, and it's important that we grow together. We change together. We don't change apart. Right? We change to be the better version of ourselves. So that comes from communicating and knowing and saying, hey, you know what, I'm sorry, but that you're a bit out of line in that. Can we talk about it? Or
Yeah.
I feel like this is what's happening to me. Can we talk about that? Or that's something that bugged me, you know, way back when, and I'm seeing it now. And I feel it's going to hurt us, you know?
Sure.
So it takes guts to do that, Simba. It's, for me right now, it's easy for me standing on the outside saying this. Honestly, I cannot imagine what it's like on the inside anymore,
Sure.
because what I went through maybe distorted my whole view of marriage.
Sure.
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 Right? Will I do it differently? Yes.
Sure.
But I can't say it's going to be different. Only God knows that.
Yeah.
Will I do it
Jeez.
again? I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at myself, because every time I talk to my wife, I'm like, "Girl, listen. If you die, me, I'm going to be a missionary.
Yeah.
I'm not getting married again. I'm gonna go live somewhere in
But
a
we've
village."
done that. We've said that. I mean, I've said that lying in bed with my husband, saying that if something happens to you, or if we get divorced, I'll never move on with
Sure.
somebody else.
Sure.
But I can't say that right now,
Yeah.
because I want to experience that.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
if you guys can experience that now, love and cherish and appreciate your wife. That's all I want right now.
It's great.
Sure.
Love, cherish, and appreciate, but it works both ways.
It's great.
Yeah.
I'm skipping the middle parts of your post because we actually spoke about some of that. Although, except the Boys to Men reference, because that's my favorite band. They're coming.
The Boys
Yeah.
to Men.
We're going. Tell me what's the Boys to Men reference?
It's one.
Oh, the
It's
reference.
1.5. That's one thing I can't get over. I love
What?
Boys to Men, but I'm like, I'm gonna pay 1,500.
What?
Oh, no, you waited too long, man. You should have got them
That's
early.
all these concerts are just expensive.
I
No,
don't
you
know.
get them early when they first come out.
I feel like
I don't
one.
read
I
it
feel like
daily.
1.5. Like I need to get a pedicure as well, and
Yeah,
they need
you
to
with your
give
fabulous
me-
feet.
And
Because
exactly.
they're going to look at your feet.
That's the only reason they're gonna sing well.
Down on
Yeah.
bended knee.
As if they
You
look
have
at
to
my
show your
feet.
feet for down on bended
Yeah,
knee.
yeah. The toes
See,
need to
doc,
be in order.
telling
Toenails
you.
gotta be spick and span.
Anyway, it's. I mean, it's not the end, but towards the end, you say I've been blessed with gorgeous friends that have become sisters, and you list all of them. My gorgeous family, my amazing boys, my heavenly Father, who got me through it. Where would I be without the love and sacrifice of Jesus? Speak about community. How did family, friends?
I have not completely understood the power of community until you go through, excuse my language,
Yeah, yeah.
right? To be surrounded
Sure.
that's how you get through. And it's people that God has placed in your life strategically. You look back and you're like, "Whew, how did that person come now?" And then all of them just come together and they don't know each other. But you're surrounded.
And they're all oddballs. You're like, how would you guys hang out together
don't
anywhere
share the
else
same
in
views.
life? Anywhere else in life besides here? How would you have become?
How?
Yeah, sure.
But again, God uses your situation to draw people together and draw people around you. And for you to feel loved and surrounded is unbelievable. I could not have done this without that. Because if not, you would draw into a shell. I didn't go through depression. Yes, there's low points. There's times when you start talking to other people and you're like, am I depressed? I didn't.
Sure.
God held me up through love and support. You'd get people coming and saying, do you need help with the boys? Can we fetch them from school for you? I'm like,
Wow.
no, it's fine. I'll sort it out. No, I'll go to work. I'll come back at 12. I'll fetch Hezi. I'll go back and I come back and I fetch Sia and I go back to work. I've got this because that's me. I'm the person that gives help easily. I grew up like that. I grew up with a family like that, right? My mom's side, my dad's side, we're there for you. We'll surround you. But when you are suddenly surrounded and you're like, you don't have to do that. I'm there. How can we help you? And please let us help you.
Yeah.
It blows your mind,
Sure.
right? And that is how my community has come around me all of a sudden. There are people there that might not be walking the same walk with Christ or not knowing him, but God still places them in your life that is there. And we've been through this, so we're guiding you through that. And for me, I see God's hand in it. It's the thread
Sure.
that's there, and he holds you together through that, and you got that outlet. You got someone to talk to. You pick up the phone and you talk to somebody. You're down, you pick up the phone and you talk to somebody. How many people actually have that?
Yeah.
And that's what I get at this church and in my circle of people, right? That you've got someone there to help you through it. You've got someone to talk to and say, are you okay?
Sure.
And someone looks at you and says, I'm fine. No, you're not. How are you? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. And it stops you in your tracks and you think, for the past 15 years, I've been saying,
I'm fine.
I'm fine. Hey, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. And someone stops and says, but how are you? Asking somebody how they are when you see something wrong, call them out on it and say, something's wrong. And it for me, it's the Holy Spirit that pushes you to that person and says, are you okay? God opens your eyes to that. And that's what I was surrounded with,
Sure.
right? And my kids were surrounded. They were just taken under wings,
Sure. Yeah.
And, I look at them and I say, that's only the hand of God. That is the community that they are a part of, that have just surrounded them when I didn't even know. Right? When I'm going through my stuff, someone was there for them. And that's what it means to be a part of a church family.
Sure.
It's great. No, that's dope, man. That is dope. This has been, I told you it's not going to be 30 minutes.
Never. Never.
No, it's not at all. Yeah. I mean, you've said a couple of times that you're not shutting out the possibility of getting married. Or have you?
No.
Okay.
If you asked me a couple of months ago, I would have said, no way. You go through a point, I went through a point, I'm like, you don't even notice the opposite sex. I promise you, Simba.
These
you're
are
like,
creatures.
They were created to hurt you. And all men are the same. I think that's a topic for another day. All men are the same. They all cut from the same cloth. And the truth is, yes, as women, we feel that. But the person God has for you is cut from his cloth. And everybody has that person. That's how I feel now. And I don't look at it in that way anymore. Not walking around looking at every guy. No, that's not it. But God brings you to that point where you're like, I'm okay. I am okay. I'm strong. I'm fragile. Yes, I'm fragile. The healing process, and I think this last 2 weeks showed me that I'm still fragile. It's been hard because you go from that high to that sudden low. It's literally like drop down, right? And you're like, Lord, what was it like 2 weeks ago? How was I fine? I can't remember. So does that mean now I start from scratch?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But renew my faith in the opposite sex, in other people, in whatever it is, because marriage was ordained by you and given by you. A relationship with with someone of the opposite sex is given by you, the right relationship, right? So for me, I want him to impact me in however way he wants to, but it's always been my dream to work with someone for Christ, to serve. That is like, for me, there's nothing sexier than that.
Come on now.
Right?
Come on
to
now.
serve Christ together, because that's what we were made for. To impact.
We were at a young adult camp not long ago, and my wife was part of the worship team, and so she was singing, doing the thing. Before she sang, she was, just telling people, encouraging people, in light of the song, etc., etc., etc. And then she sang the thing. Sang, was dope. And then I had printed out the lyrics, so I knew, all the songs. And then she just broke off into the same song, but a Zulu version of the song. I'm Zulu. I didn't know that was coming.
You were never ready.
Oh, yeah. I started praying. I was like, Jesus, I'm sinning here. This chick looks hot. I don't know.
Trying to focus on you, but you're making it hot right now.
Because it's that thing where I'm like,
It's all about you, Jesus.
we're serving Jesus together and you touch the sugar in the process.
Ilembe.
Yay!
That's the godly intimacy.
That's it. Where I was like, Jesus, you're amazing. You are amazing, Jesus.
See?
So anyway, that was fire.
You
That was
see?
fire. So I get you. I get you. Just to add on to that.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah. You want that person to lift you up in Christ, and you want to lift them up in Christ, and you want to lift other people up in Christ.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what you want.
Yeah. Dope.
Yeah.
Dr. James, thank you.
Thank you.
This has been super dope. I've been encouraged, and I think the thing that hit me the most is, this is not the end. You're alive. You have two amazing boys that you're raising. Your faith in the Lord, the hope that you still have in life. And to acknowledge, even as I'm saying this, that there's people who it takes longer for them to get to where you are to.
Yeah.
Like years,
Exactly.
But it's just encouraging and just so dope to see, how the Lord has carried you and where you're at now. And not to say that you don't have lows. I mean, you just said it as well. There's times where you just like, yo, man, this is rough.
Yeah.
But yeah, and just being open with your story and wanting to share that with us. And I think it's clearly even just from your post of wanting to encourage the next person, and I think there's power in that. There's power in not just saying to somebody things will be okay, but there's power in saying, look at the mess, and even after you've gleaned in and seen how the mess has been, there is hope at the end of it, So I think there's power in that. So shout outs to you and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me
More
talk.
power to you.
And you guys are amazing. I mean, the fact that you sit here and listen to me, it's like, I've learned a lot from you both.
You're a hard person not to listen to, like the
You're
poetry that's coming out. Thorns. I'm like, yo.
I've never
I didn't know lemons had thorns, dog.
Bro, I
lemon
never
trees.
thought we should write something until today. As 2.5 husbands, we need to write something. Yeah.
You need to write something.
All thanks to you. So.
Yeah, like
Good.
for me, just even the stance where you're saying, I never thought about it in the sense of someone who's going through divorce or you mentioned separation as well.
Yeah.
I'm like, renew my faith in the opposite sex. I'm like, boy, if that was a prayer that we had happening a lot, we would have a lot less resentment against one another.
Bro.
Yeah.
For me, I was
Bro.
like, whew,
From both sides.
from both ends.
Yeah.
From both ends. Because I think
Yeah.
a lot of us talk about it from a female perspective. But a lot of gents probably have that need to say, renew my faith.
He
and
is
my
a God
view
of
that."
restoration. I'm learning that. He's a God of restoration. He uses you at your point of need. He is going to use you through that. Right? And he needs you at your point of need. So why will he not use you at your point of need as well to impact others? So he is a God of restoration. He doesn't want us to be happy. I mean, unhappy. He wants us to enjoy what he's given to us. Right? Whether it be in your singleness or meeting somebody else in the future, right? I went through life in the last few years thinking marriage is terrible. I hate it. Right? So that makes, in that moment, you think, well, sinning is easy. It's okay because I don't believe in marriage. So, right? And I didn't. From that point, I'm like, I don't believe in marriage. Right? But God says, that's not what I want. I want you to enjoy the benefits and the fruit of marriage. There's so much that you can benefit and you can do together. You're going to find that person that wants to travel with you and that wants to spend life with you and go away for a night and, live on the edge and go to a Burna Boy concert with you or Boys to Men or whatever it is, or Metallica. I don't know. I don't want to do Metallica, but right? But go to Burna Boy with your wife. Right? But he wants to restore you.
He does.
It's dope, man. Yeah. Hope in marriage because of our hope in God. That's it.
Yep.
2.5.
It's not all lost.
Nah, we'll see, man.
You guys are 2 here. Don't know where the half comes, but I see good.
No.
Hey.
Our wives aren't here.
Yeah. It's gonna be
It's a different story.
Peace.
See, 2.5. Peace.